And of course, this episode is brought to you by our good friends from Living in Style at the Park Mall. This lovely leather executive seat is courtesy of our good friends from Living in Style. Thank you so much. Also brought to you by our good friends from the all-new Cherry Tiggo 5X. I've been test driving one for the past couple of days, and it blew me away. You should test drive it yourself today. Thank you so much for making this episode of Alive, my search for the best ways to live, possible. Hi, guys. Welcome to Alive, my search for the best ways to live. I'm your host. My name is Jiggy Jr., and my search has brought me to this person here in front of us. Her name is Sarah or Windy ZARAH. ZARAH Windy. Your family name and your second name, or your first name is your second name. How does that work? Most of these are two names, right? ZARAH Windy.
It's supposed to make things simple, and okay. I feel like it's making things more complicated for you.
Thank you so much for being here with us tonight on such very short notice. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Before we start, I'd like to give you a little introduction, if you don't mind. ZARAH Windy is a Shamanic Reiki Master-Teacher, a mentor and a coach trained in pranic healing, Seraphim Blueprint, Theta Healing, and Sacred Plant Medicine. She is also practicing, she also practices and teaches yoga, Cacao Ceremony, tarot card reading, just to mention a few of her many hats and many other modalities. Born in Baguio City, Philippines, Windy has lived in cities like Manila, Paris, New York, Hong Kong, Madrid, Geneva, and Marseille before moving to Cebu back in 2013. Once again, ZARAH, thank you so much for being here with us today in Alive. Before we get to the reason why, I wanted to talk to you because we're celebrating Women's Month all March. ZARAH, can you tell us a little bit about what Reiki is? What is Reiki? What is that all about?
Yes, thank you for asking me about that. So Reiki is an energy healing technique that comes from Japan, and it basically it works on the energetic component of our body. So the idea is that everything is energy, and matter has an energetic aspect to it. So rather than only focusing on the physical or the mental, we address that other component, which is often neglected, but is actually, once we start manipulating it and being aware of it and learning to manage it, then it really opens up our options.
Okay. Yeah. So that is in a nutshell what Reiki is.
So Reiki is when we're working with that field, and we're cleansing the energetic body so that our healing process can be accelerated, so that our emotions can be easier to manage, and yeah, kind of in a nutshell, that's how it is. So energy work in general is kind of difficult to explain. So it's more of an experiential world, I want to say. And so even if we can talk about it, people read about it, it's different when you come and have a session, and everyone reacts differently. A lot of times people feel lighter, like if they've been feeling like weighed down by stress or grief or any of those very heavy, like anxiety. After the session, they feel like really, really light. Okay, that's because we were able to cleanse their energy field. Yeah, it sounds a little woo-woo, I know.
Yeah, I know. Which brings me to my second question. What led you to becoming Reiki? Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to becoming a Reiki practitioner, if you want to call it that. What led you to that?
Sure.
What was the journey like, if you don't mind?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've always been interested in alternative, like Eastern health. Like I took Tai Chi and Qigong when I was in college. I was interested in mind expanding, consciousness and authors, things like that. And it wasn't until I was already living in Cebu. I had a restaurant here for 2 years, and I was very burnt out and depleted. And so I took a vacation just to recharge and regenerate. And I went to Angkor Wat with my daughter, and they were offering Reiki. And I didn't know what it was, but it really kind of piqued my curiosity. And so I researched it, and I took a course, kind of not having ever experienced it, but I loved the description of it. And I was like, I'm going to try this out. Like, I'm very curious by nature, and I love studying. And so I wanted to learn Reiki actually to heal my mother. Who I felt, she lives in the US, and I felt like I wasn't contributing to her well-being. And with Reiki, there's a distance healing component. I was really, intrigued by that.
So you can actually heal somebody from a distance, let's say through Zoom. Is that possible?
Not even through Zoom. Like, I can even later when we're not talking. Yeah.
So you can do something, some sort of prayer or chant or whatever you want to call it, and heal her from a distance. Is there like a limit? How many kilometers is the healing power going to be?
No. I mean, I guess in terms of distance, it works like prayer, but it's different from prayer. It's different from prayer. Yeah.
Okay.
So like I said, I was very curious, and I started practice when I took my first class. Like I mentioned, I had never experienced it, but I just felt like I was remembering stuff, and everything like just fell into place. And I started sharing it in Cebu, and people were very responsive.
Okay.
Not only were they responsive, they were like, I want to take your course. So I had a little page called Reiki Cebu. People were messaging me, I want to learn. And when I took my level 1, I had never imagined I would be teaching. So, I was an entrepreneur. Like, I worked in corporate, the United Nations, it had nothing to do with that at all. But I was just guided by, the demand and how it was touching people's lives, really.
But primarily it was because of your mother.
Yes, it was. But then that like took a back seat, because people here were having big breakthroughs, Jiggy. Like, they were having life changing, life changes with the sessions. And so they started learning it. So I took my 3 levels, because you need to do all the levels to start teaching. So I started teaching it, and then, and the rest is history. I opened a center called Gasho Center for Healing Arts in Mabolo on Afkabahog. So that was running from 2017 to 2019. So I haven't stopped teaching Reiki ever since. As a matter of fact, I have a class on the 20th on Zoom. Yeah.
So when you say a class, this is people who'd like to learn how to teach Reiki, or this is for people who need healing?
So they learn to practice it on themselves.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So the technique, it's very easy to learn, but really what's fantastic about it is that it was the starting point of my journey. And from there, I just opened so many doors. So the same can happen potentially with the people who take the first level of Reiki. It really is a journey into self-discovery, self-inquiry, self-healing. That's why I loved the caption of your podcast when you said it really resonated, because it resonates with my life's work as well. Yeah.
So is it similar to meditation? Because it sure sounds like it is some kind of meditative practice. Is it?
Is it similar? So there's a meditation component.
Okay.
But in meditation, the intention is not to cleanse the energy body. The intention is to, be in the present, quiet the mind. So it's a little bit different. When we start working with these things, the intention matters a lot. Right? And so in meditation, you also don't really do it for other people. You're not going to go to a healer for meditation. Well, you can, but then that's for a meditation session. So it's a little bit different. Like, if you have a session with me, and now I have sessions at Maayo Medical.
Okay.
So you come and you lie down on the table with your clothes on, and then what I do is I do my hand positions over your body, like a body scan, and then you're just relaxing and taking in the energy. You're actively receiving it. Some people fall asleep. Some people kind of twitch. Some people feel emotional. So it's different for everyone. So it's a little different from the meditation, right?
Okay.
There's no talking also.
Okay. So when you mentioned the word energy, I wanted to go there for just a little bit before we go back to the real reason why we're having this interview. When you say energy, because I heard somebody once say that everything is energy. What do you mean when you say energy? What in the context of Reiki? What is it when you say? What does it mean when you say energy?
That's a really big question. When we say, first of all, when we say everything is energy, it's because when you go to like a atomic or subatomic level, most of matter it's actually empty, right? When you go like, it's all like there's space with the electrons kind of, it's energy, and on that level there's emptiness, right? So stuff that looks solid, it's actually like lower vibrating. That's why it solidifies, but it's all empty. So on one level, that's what we mean when we say that, or that's what people mean, I guess. On another level, when we say everything is energy, like when we say like money is actually energy, and maybe you've heard that said before. What we mean is that what happens inside the body is, first it happens inside and then it manifests in the outer world, kind of like that, right? So the external, like the tangible stuff, is kind of just like an offshoot of what's happening inside, which is more of the energetic, I guess. So that's what we're working with as energy workers. I don't know if that makes sense.
Like you said, yeah, it's easy. It's difficult for you to explain what it is until they actually experience what Reiki is. So I guess they need to be in one of your sessions one of these days.
Let me use an example that actually is a good segue into the topic that we wanted to discuss today. Like earlier, I told you I had a session actually with a couple, and we did an energetic. So we did a kind of like a guided meditation, which I call a shamanic journey, which is energy work, because we were working on masculine and feminine, yin and yang energies inside. And when we're able to access that inner world and create like a harmonious interaction within, then it affects all of the outside stuff. Right. So that's also why we say like everything is energy. Like it starts, most of the time people are like kind of hustling in the external world because that's what we see, and that's the limit of our perception most of the time. So, and the results are like not always so great because there's the energetic counterpart to it is not being addressed. So when we start with the inside, it's easier to access, like to have a more lasting and more like high, like with a better foundation to start manifesting externally.
So you've been practicing Reiki for how many years now?
So I did my first level in 2015.
Okay.
So 6 years.
6 years now. So which brings me to my next question. The reason why we are having this conversation right now is I posted a query on social media, and I asked for a voice of a feminist lurking in Cebu, and there are several names that came out, but your name, you said in your sort of response to the thread, was you were a former feminist. You were a feminist, but no longer is a feminist. What do you mean when you said that? Do you mean that you no longer believe in feminism, or you don't believe in the movement that is going on, or the general direction of the movement of feminism these days? What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So once again, it's a loaded question, and it has many levels to it. So yes, I considered myself a feminist for a long time, meaning to say I've always had a strong sense of justice and activism and equality, and I still have that. Anymore is, first of all, labels. In general, I find that people get too attached to labels, and then they lose the essence, right? So essence, energy, kind of similar as well. And so what my kind of stepping away from the feminist movement happened last year, 2020. It was a big year of transformation for many people. For billions. Yeah, exactly. It was a year of kind of like reckoning and kind of self-inquiry and shadow work, all of that stuff. And so I was doing some work, and some inner work myself. Like I was working with a mentor, and we were just debunking together like a lot of old paradigms that we needed to let go of in order to create a better, more aligned world. And you listen to my podcast, and I say something like, my mission is to create heaven on earth, it sounds a bit silly, but actually everything I do has that as a guiding line. Like when I teach Reiki, it's to help people create that for themselves and then around them, right? So back to our question about feminism. My work on myself is really what helped me, also what is helping me help others. And so what happens is, as humans, we tend to react. We act by reaction, right? And so what is feminism? It's really in centuries of toxic masculine patriarchy and subjugation, right? So things were very, very skewed. Women were treated like objects and cattle, and they didn't have that place that to a certain extent women do enjoy nowadays. And so feminism kind of helped balance that out. But what happened was, since it was a reaction to something negative, it also backfired in a sense that it's created this is going to be controversial. It's created a generation of kind of emasculated men. Okay. Yeah. So that's kind of the premise in a nutshell of why I feel like it's no longer an uplifting movement, which
but there are parts of the world, women who suffer in different parts of the world, who are very patriarchal. There are several parts of the world, I think maybe perhaps in the Middle East, that, just fairly recently women were allowed to drive and wearing all those burqas, they call it. And, women are still subjected to, let's say, arranged marriages or forced marriages and all that stuff. So there is still a lot of injustice in the world in general, especially against women, right?
Even in the Philippines, we don't even have to go.
Yeah.
So absolutely, and of course that needs to be, that's not okay, right? Those injustices towards women, those things are not okay. I just feel like feminism is not the answer to it anymore. Okay. So I don't have the new movement or whatever you call it. I have developed a distrust of movements in general, because it tends to be they kind of have a shelf life after which the constituents, their ego overrides the original intention.
Well, I guess what happens is a movement becomes a victim of their own success. You know what I mean? Like they become so, for example, let's just take the case of feminism. Women are so empowered that, like you said, you have created an entire generation of emasculated men, right? So in a way, I think movements become victims of their own success sometimes, right?
Sure. That's why it's so important to be constantly checking in on yourself. Am I still aligned? And I think you're doing this with what your interviews and so on. And not everyone. People are lazy, I think, or they're scared to find something that's uncomfortable. So most likely very few people do this exercise for themselves. They just accept. It's easier to put our responsibility onto a political party, right? Onto a celebrity, onto it's so much easier than to do the thinking, to do the research for yourself. So going forward, I think people are starting to realize that there's a lot of manipulation that's been done, for example, with mainstream media, stuff like that. So people are slowly learning to maybe be more critical thinkers, and so creating things that are like, post-feminist things. So it's no longer like, I used to believe it was cool to be a single mom, and that's. Now I think it's kind of toxic. Like it's not cool to be a single mom. I don't think it's cool anymore. Like I experienced that myself, and let me tell you, it was not fun. So that's not something I would wish on anyone. Right. So that's how I have also evolved. Like I realized that men and women have different things to contribute, and that they work well as partners, men and women, and masculine and feminine. So we have masculine and feminine within each of us. So that can work for, same sex couples, whatever. So so my views have really, really radically changed.
But do you still subscribe to one of the original ideas of feminism from Simone de Beauvoir and the Second Sex, that feminism is just a cultural construct?
I think everything is a cultural construct. Yeah. That's why in the work that I do, we're kind of like letting go of, first of all, examining. Okay, just because it's a cultural construct doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. But what we want to do is take a look like, hey, is this still valid for me? Is this serving me? Whether it's a cultural construct, whether it's a tradition, whether it's a movement, like, am I still aligned with it? Like, even me with my Reiki practice, I had a challenge within my own Reiki practice where I had to kind of reassess. Do I still want to be known as a Reiki practitioner, or do I want to just be an energy healer? And then so it's a constant process of checking in, of kind of recalibrating, realigning, and that's where meditation actually helps. Having a meditation practice, which I consider separate from my Reiki practice, yeah. But again, there's overlaps. Obviously, do you have a meditation practice yourself?
No, I don't. I'm sorry, but I try to meditate.
Yeah.
Especially if I'm stuck in traffic.
Yeah, I think if you try to meditate, that counts as a meditation practice. Yeah, there's so many. That's why I feel so passionate about my work, because I feel like there's so many myths that should need to be debunked about things like meditation. Like I always hear like, oh no, I can't meditate, which is like, actually you can, right? Even if you.
But one of the things about meditation, what makes it very difficult is the mind is an infinite stream, right? I mean, you can't control your thoughts. Your mind is just constantly.
You don't think you can control your thoughts?
Well, you can through meditation, but what I'm saying is in other states of being, before meditating or after meditation, your mind is just constantly thinking, constantly, almost like uncontrollably functioning without you. So you're almost helpless unless you put yourself in a state of meditation and stop for a while and actually observe those thoughts that are going through your mind, and perhaps try to stop them and just think of one thought at a time, or no thought at all, right?
So, I mean, the thing is, we have so many preconceptions about meditation that actually we should just approach it like any other skill. It's like, oh, I'm going to learn, like to use a kettlebell thingy. So maybe in my head, like it's kind of difficult and I don't have like the body for it, whatever. I'm just making this up. But if I go with a trainer, right? Yeah. Who's a pro and who can guide me, then little by little it'll be less daunting. It'll be then I'll learn, and maybe it's not for me, but at least so it's the same process.
Principle, okay.
It's the same thing. It's like, oh, this is too difficult. It's too difficult. I think that's what you said. It's too difficult because we're thinking constantly. Like that's everybody's starting point.
Yeah.
Right. That's why the monks meditate for days on end at a very young age, because it's so difficult. Because our brain is wired to be thinking constantly. So you're not weird. You're not defective if you have a hard time meditating. That's like, I've been meditating for a long time, and there's still days where, you know what, I'm going to skip it, and I'm not going to like beat myself up, or I'm going to keep it short, or I sit and my mind is like racing, and that's fine. You see what I mean?
Yeah. So how has your Reiki practice, your spiritual life informed your feminism? I mean, is there a relation between your spiritual practice and the way you have evolved in terms of your belief in feminism?
Completely, because for me, everything is related. Like my view of life and health and wellness is all related. It's even, I mean, when you think about what I'm doing, right? I'm doing spiritual work and I'm getting paid for it, right?
Mhm.
So that was already something that I had to wrap my head around,
Mhm.
because there's so much like, wait, that doesn't work, that doesn't go together,
Mhm.
and coming from myself, coming
Mhm.
from a society, so everything is talking to each other, my all of my practices. And so
Mhm.
that's funny that you asked that, because my work, the way I evolved with my relationship to femininity and my relationship to the masculine, as a matter of fact, started out when I took a business course
Mhm.
to launch so I pivoted to online coaching last year, and then I took a mastermind to help me solidify that. And it was during that course that we did this kind of like healing of the relationship with the masculine. And so it is related, it's energetic, right? So my Reiki actually supports all of my practices, because it's kind of like a backdrop of keeping things clear and clean and high vibrating and protected and safe. And so it informs all of my practices. Even when I drink Sequate, it's Reiki.
Sequate, yeah. So yeah, let's get to the Sequate part later on.
I have to talk about Sequate.
But are women and men totally and completely different? Are men are from Venus and women are from Mars, or something like that? I remember that book years ago. Energetically, are we two different energies?
Okay, so this is something that I learned last year with it, which I thought was so beautiful. Energetically, the man gives of his energy from his lower centers. So around his sex center, that's where he gives to the woman. So it sounds weird and stuff, but it's not. And then the woman gives from her heart center. So like I told you today, I had a session with a beautiful couple, and they did this energetic exchange. So it's like a battery, they're polarized. And then so the man does this practice from the lower energy center, the woman receives it there, brings it up to this upper center. So we have different energy centers throughout the body that govern different things. And so that's how, so energetically speaking, they are opposite, right?
So what does that mean when the energy comes from the lower part and the energy comes from the upper part? What does that mean? That the man's energy is more sexual and the woman is more from love, from the heart? What does it mean exactly when you say the location of the energy center of a man is in the lower part and the woman is near the heart?
Yeah. So we can call it the sex center because that's where our sexual organs are located, but it doesn't mean that it's sexual in the sense that we understand it with media and so on and so forth. Sexual can also be like a creative force, right? And so when we look at the chakra system, which is kind of like a roadmap of how our different energy centers are organized, coming from yogic tradition in India, like centuries and centuries ago. The lower chakras govern our physical, kind of the physical world, with our resources, and then our anxieties are there, our fears, our money issues, our sexuality, our creativity, they're all in the lower. And then the upper chakras govern our spiritual practice. And in the middle, in between, the fourth chakra is the heart chakra. And so that's where kind of like the lower and the upper meet, and it's about compassion and empathy. So women and men operate differently and exchange differently. And for a long time, women are, because of the feminist movement, the women try to operate like men. Because they're like, it's a male-dominated word, we have to operate like men if we want to be taken seriously, if we want the same things men. So this is all happening in the background unconsciously, right? And so what do women do? They take on that energetic coat of a man, but then they deplete themselves in the process, and also they skew that dynamic. So I'm not blaming, right? It's like everyone's doing it together. We're doing it together. And so they skew the dynamic, and then the man is like, what am I here for? You don't need me, right? Because you're so empowered. And then they're like, then that'll depress any man if he's not feeling needed,
right? Yeah,
protected, and right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of one of the side effects of feminism. So it is all related.
Yeah, everything is connected, right?
Yeah. Is it? Have I confused you enough?
No, it's all right. It's all right. In fact, somebody once said that if you're not confused, you're not listening hard enough. So I'm supposed to be confused. Where do you think the direction is now of feminism? Because I see a lot of strange and different worldviews about the direction of feminism now. Based on your observation, you sort of got off the feminism bandwagon a few years ago, 2 years ago, you said. But as you observe it now, where do you think it's going? Where is it headed? And is it headed in the right direction?
So I'm not interested in that question. So I'm not gonna focus on that. My energy on that. Yeah, I really, I think it's irrelevant because it's like I said, for me, it's an old paradigm, and it's more like, why don't we focus on healing our wounds? You know, practice learning unconditional self-love, and then sharing that with others. Why don't we focus on empowering ourselves, men and women? Why don't we focus on learning to cooperate as men and women without women trying to be men, right? In the workplace, for example. So those are the things that interest me. And so what are the tools that we need, that we have, that are accessible to us to get to that place, right? So like I said, feminism for me is like, it's going to be in the history. I mean, for me, it's like, that's why when
go ahead, continue, please.
No, that's why your question was interesting, because I feel like it's what's that word? It's irrelevant.
Yeah. With this pandemic happening now for, I don't know, more than a year, since January, I think, of last year when we were on lockdown, there are several societies, several countries that are more successful than others. And they're saying that the classic example of this, of course, is New Zealand. Ardern, I think their prime minister there is doing a very good job with the pandemic, as well as the other countries who have female leaders. What are your thoughts on that? And why are the women more effective at controlling this pandemic compared to their male counterparts?
Okay, that's a really interesting question. I haven't really thought about that, but what's coming to mind now is that, remember I told you, I talked earlier about how we have both masculine and feminine aspects in us, right? And so women in general have a tendency to be, so the masculine is all about structure and goals and, getting things done and action. And the feminine is more about cooperation, collaboration, opening, listening, nurturing. And so in a sense, having a woman as a leader, I feel she's able to access both of those maybe more than a man is. Right? Because of also this environment of, so she's able to balance both of those aspects, which are needed to be a good leader, really.
Okay.
You can't just, yes, you can reign with terror, but it's going to be maybe short-lived and not effective, or not having, the type of results that we're looking for.
Okay.
So that's off the top of my head, one thing that's coming up for me.
So I guess there's a sort of like a demand now for more women leaders, right? I mean, like for a long time, the Philippines only had male presidents, for example. But we've had two already. Of course, Corazon Aquino and Loren Macapagal Arroyo, and we have a vice president as a woman. But in the United States, they still don't have a woman president, although they already have a woman vice president. So I guess there is a demand for perhaps more women in leadership positions, perhaps. And would that be more effective, or would that be just different, not necessarily more effective?
So I don't really want to talk about world politics because I don't feel like it's my area of expertise.
Okay.
I really, yeah. So I'd rather leave that commentary to other experts and really help people like go within and do their inner work. I feel like we each have our way to contribute. We can't all contribute in the same manner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Part of our duty as citizens of this earth, actually, because that's my affinity is to the planet, is really finding out how we can best serve not only the country but the planet, right? And so politics, focusing on politics is not something I think that is a good way for me to spend my energy.
Yeah, but the fact of the matter is that energy exists, and that energy is there. There is no denying that energy, whether you like it or not, right? It is there in front of you. It's lurking in the things that you don't want to talk about. Let's say politics, for example. It is there.
Oh yeah, I mean,
just choose not. You just choose not to go
to
to not to talk about it or not to think about it. But it is there, and you're going to exist in a world that is full of politics because you don't live in a vacuum. We don't live in a vacuum that is our own creation. There are other energies that are going to sort of invade your energy, if you want to call it that, right?
Oh no, invade my energy.
yeah, because you mentioned you don't want to talk about politics, right? Or other things that you don't want to talk. You don't want to talk about the general direction of feminism now. I asked you about how you feel about where the feminism is going now, and you didn't want to talk about that as well.
I told you I gave you my answer that I think it's like not. I don't think it's.
You don't want to spend your energy.
No, I told you that for me it's not something that's part of the
You're
future.
expert.
It's outdated. That was my answer.
Okay, all right. But politics, for example.
Your question was, do we need more female leaders? Is that your question?
Yes.
I feel we need more leaders that are aware of, are doing their inner healing work. Mm-hmm. And not just acting out their trauma on the world stage.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't care if they're men or women.
Okay, it doesn't matter.
No, as long as they're doing that work and they're working from a place of love and not fear.
Mm-hmm.
As a leader.
Okay.
They can be male, they can be female.
It doesn't matter. So
no, the heart woman who's working from a place of who can do something that's not so good for the community. That can happen.
You mentioned that we have different energy centers, right? Like you said, the man is from the lower part and the woman is from the upper part.
No, that's not what I said.
Well, what did you say?
We all have the same 7 main chakras.
Okay, but
in terms of how they operate relationally,
okay,
it's a different dynamic.
Okay.
But we have the same apparatus, energetic apparatus.
It's just there's more power, if you want to call it that, at these different areas. Is that what you're saying?
No, I meant the direction of the polarity.
Okay.
Yeah.
The direction.
It's a little advanced. It's a little technical.
Okay. So the energy of a woman coming from wherever it is that you said, and the man from a different place, they are not more effective at some things and less effective at some things. They are just as effective. Is that what you're trying to say? But they just have different energy centers. Is that what it is? In terms of effectivity, in terms of existing, in terms of being alive, in this present day situation where we are now, our truth, our reality.
So a woman can do anything she wants to, right? And she can be good at it. And a man can do anything he wants to and be good at it. Now it's more of, again, I go back to that intention. What is her intention to be in this field, And so men and women might have different intentions. So they each can be good at the same thing if that is what they want. And that is what is nurturing for their body, because also physiologically they're different, right? Like a woman, for example, has a monthly cycle and a man has like a daily cycle, I guess.
A daily
right?
cycle.
Or a minute cycle. I don't know. Cycle. I don't know. So those are all things to take into consideration as well. Right? How effective can? Yeah. I don't know. I feel like it's everyone. That's the beauty, is that everyone has a unique journey with unique gifts to unfold and to share. And so it's very difficult for me to kind of make gross generalizations. I don't like putting people in boxes, saying, you do this, you do that. I think it's more important that we really find out for ourselves what works for us. I never decided, I'm going to be like a energy healer and teacher, but maybe it is a more female dominated field. I don't know. I don't have the data. Is it relevant to me at this point? Not really.
So how do you know what works for you, Windy? How do you know that?
Because I check in and see if I feel good about something in my decision-making process, right?
So it's about that feeling good. And is that your sort of your barometer? If it feels good, then this must be working. This must be for me.
That's one of so our body, right, is actually constantly feeding us, giving us feedback.
Okay.
What should we eat? What should we even wear? How much should we sleep? What should we be, like, where should we be going? Like, our body's constantly talking to us, but we're so caught up in this center that we don't listen to it. So if we take more time to connect to our body, and in quiet time, in time where we're not constantly stimulated, then it's easier for us to make the right decisions for us. So it's never been a straight path for me. I've done twists and turns and made mistakes and, like adjust course. But this is where it's taken me, and I think it's pretty cool so far. Okay. And I'm happy with my guidance. I don't have all the answers. One of the things that I've learned over the past year is be flexible with your planning. When I plan, it's like, doesn't work out.
Yeah.
So now it's more like,
sometimes the best plan is no plan at all.
Well, in times of pandemic, it looks like it. Like, I was supposed to leave the country a year ago, and then I'm here, and I kept making plans, and it didn't work out because it kept the quarantine and so on and so forth. And so I stopped making plans. I
still want to go back to you, what you said about feeling good and knowing what you are or what you want. You don't always feel good. We don't always feel good about the thing that we supposedly love to do.
It's not about feeling good. It's about noticing. So I'm a yoga instructor also. And when I did my yoga training course, we had to go and start noticing the response of our body, our response to pain, when we tense up, when our skin pricks, when our breathing starts to get. So all of these are very, very subtle cues. And when we're making a decision, right, our body is either going to tense up or relax. So these are like subtle cues that our body's saying. If you, for example, somebody's like, do you want to go on my talk show? And then you say yes, and then your body's like, you have a tummy ache after that.
So what does that mean? What does that tell you?
Maybe it's not. Maybe you really didn't want to go, and you're just trying to be a people pleaser. Okay. Right?
Or maybe you care about it too. Maybe you care about it too much that it's giving you butterflies, right?
That's another. Yeah. So knowing yourself and your body's response, like, what is the difference when I'm having an anxiety belly? What is the difference when I'm having an excitement belly? That's only you can determine that. No doctor can tell you that. Response. And if you're aware of that, that can avoid you maybe an ulcer, in 20 years from now. What about 20 years of misdiagnosing, your stomach, when it says, most of the time our stomach grumbles are like, I'm hungry, feed me. But what if it's thirsty? What if it's stressed out? What if it's tired? There's so many levels, and there's so many cues that our body is always telling us.
But isn't it in the purview of science to observe all those things that you mentioned? Let's say if you have a tummy ache, then there's an actual, let's say, chemical recomposition that's going on in your stomach. That's why it's causing a tummy ache, right? So
But what caused the chemical?
yeah. So it is in the purview of science to observe
So you're saying
the tummy ache, right?
Right, but I don't have I'm not going to have a lab 24/7 to
Yeah, but
help
you,
me in my.
yeah, okay. So that's why you go to a doctor sometimes. I don't know.
haven't seen a doctor.
I know. I was
since
going to ask you that question because I heard
2015.
your podcast with your daughter, and you said you haven't been to a doctor for so long now, right? Why is that? Does that mean that you totally and completely do not believe the medical advancements, all the breakthroughs that have transpired in the last, say, 100 years? Is that your what you're trying to say? That because you don't go to a doctor anymore because you don't believe in all of that
I
anymore?
haven't been to a doctor for the simple reason that I haven't been ill.
Ah, okay, all right, okay, that's good. So, but you still believe in going to a doctor, right? Eventually, hopefully, you don't have to, but
So I believe that I believe in medical progress and science, and of course, it's life saving.
okay,
And should there be any injury or accident or whatever, it's great for emergency care.
Mhm.
But for chronic illnesses, I feel like they're not looking at a wide enough picture. That's
Okay.
my personal opinion.
Okay.
And a lot of the people who come to see me have been through years and years of chronic stuff, like exam after exam after exam, and medication after years of medication, and okay.
That's why your field is called alternative medicine, because I think these conditions that are debilitating and are chronic for such a long time, and they have not seen any cure, they look for other alternatives, and I think that's what you offer, right?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be debilitating. Some people live with years of like a small pain or
Like
something.
a back pain, for example.
Yeah, a back pain or an earring ringing, or like something. It's just a little bit annoying, but it's always there. Or an allergy to something, or doesn't have to be. Yeah, there's really a wide range. Also, people who've been to therapists for a long time, and talk therapy didn't do it for them. So yeah, try something else.
Try something else. Wendy, how do you define a woman? What is a woman to Wendy? And like you said earlier, you have not been a feminist for a few years now, because you totally think that that's not the way to look at the world. You have to look at the world probably in a different way, but you haven't found the answer yet. But how do you feel being a woman in 2021, in this day and age? Does it feel different? Does it feel worse? Does it feel better for you? Tell us about your honest feelings about being a woman.
Well, I feel very, very grateful that I've been exposed to a lot of these teachings that have helped me heal my relationship to divine masculine. For example, I had no idea how much I was emasculating men for many, many years. I thought I was just being, myself, and I was just being whatever, honest, or, but I'm so grateful that now I'm able to see things from a different perspective, and also help other people with their relationships. Yeah. So I love being a woman. I love where I am. I love that I'm healthy, and yeah, it's great. I love it. I love that I have no hair. Even if I'm a woman, I feel very feminine.
Is this by choice, or is there a particular reason why you shaved off your hair?
Yeah. Totally by choice. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was in June, after March, April, May.
Why did you decide to do that? Why did you decide to shave off your hair?
It was just like taking up too much of my time and my energy. Like, I just had no patience.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, like, it took me like a good 5 minutes to try to fix my hair for this interview. I didn't have time to wear real pants. I just wore my short pants here. But I was busy with my hair. I didn't realize that they could actually see me wearing short pants.
Yeah, it's fun. I love it.
So where can they learn more about your practice of Reiki, is there a website, a Facebook page, a number that I can call?
Sure,
And where do you normally hold your
1-800.
your sessions and all that stuff? Go ahead.
Yeah. So I started pivoting to more online classes, and so I mentioned to you I have a Reiki class over Zoom next week. For sessions, I'm doing sessions at Maayo Medical at the moment, and yeah, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and the podcast, of course. Lots of free resources there where I talk to so many amazing teachers and healers.
Yeah, by the way, I'd like to ask you about your podcast. How did you get into podcasting, and how has it been so far? Because I've been doing my podcast for a good 2 years now, and the reason why I love doing this podcast is to talk to people like you and learn from them. How about you? What was the process like? Why did you get into podcasting, and how has the journey been so far?
So, thank you for asking. So I've been doing a lot of, so I have a community online, right? When I closed my studio in 2019, I had a lot of my clients were having separation anxiety. So I made sure that I would be with them online. And so I have a private group called Cacao Circle, if you're interested, or anyone who's listening is interested. And I used to do a lot of Facebook Lives, where I interview people and I talk about my practice, or just give a little advice, stuff like that. And people kept telling me, you should do a podcast. Like, you're really good at talking, I guess. And once I hear a message several times, then I take it as a nudge in one direction. And so one of my mentor when I was in Toastmasters, I joined Toastmasters for about a year here to improve my public speaking. And so this guy is a podcasting coach, and he launched an online 5-week podcast challenge. And I'm always taking classes. I'm always ever the student. I'm always learning and studying. And so I joined that. And I told him, Dave, I'm gonna start my podcast in the 5 weeks, and I set a launch date, and the rest is history.
How's it been so far?
I love it. I wish I'm a little challenged with the audio stuff.
And the technical stuff, right?
Technical stuff.
So many moving parts.
But Dave was like, what's that called? Progress over perfection.
Yeah,
and so
exactly.
I didn't stop myself from getting the message. And I remember when I launched I wanted to launch my episode 1, and I listened to it, and it was like, the quality is so shitty. Like, I can't launch. And he listened to it, and he was like, do it. You're audible. You have something to say. You have a message. Just do it. Yeah. And so I pressed that button, and then I did it.
Start now and get good later, right?
Yeah. So
I guess it, just like the human experiment, I think podcasting is also some kind of an experiment, and we always try to learn from every podcast that we do, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much for doing this, Windy. It is always a pleasure to talk to people like you. I wish we could do this more often. I know that you're also quite busy, and I know you're moving and all that stuff. But I hope to catch up with you soon, once again, and maybe we can have a real life interview one of these days, perhaps over a cup of coffee, or maybe some scotch, perhaps, or whatever, or maybe some cacao, some sikwati, if you like.
Yes.
Maybe we can do a sikwati interview.
Yes. And I can do Reiki on you.
That sounds good. I don't know what that means, but that sounds good.
It'll feel good too.